Welcome to Deep River Farm, folks. Well, it's been a couple of days since we made a video, and I told you I had one that we was gonna put out called "We're Getting Sprayed Like Roaches." Well, in this video, we're gonna discuss the misinformation, the denial, the secrecy, the toxicity to humans, animals, aquatic life and organisms, the environmental issues, and the lies by the scientists, the media, private corporations, and the government. So we're going to go ahead and start today, and let me go ahead and tell you we're going to be using the phonetic alphabet here. So if you take the first letter off of each word, I'm going to tell you. It's Charlie, Lima, Indigo, Mike, Alpha, Tango, Echo, and then add the word change on it. That's what we're going to call CC, okay? So what we're talking about here is aerosol, airborne injections, solar geoengineering, weather modification, ice nucleation seeding, glaciogenic seeding, static cloud seeding, dynamic cloud seeding, energy utilization, cloud seeding, surface modification, and atmospheric process manipulation. In other words, that's all the different terms that are used to manipulate CC. Okay? So, to let you know how this thing come about, there's been a lot of denial in the government for years and years and years, even though there is legislation all the way back to 1972 concerning this matter. And they've been passing it off as condensation in the air behind the jets. And they've been calling it condensed products of combustion and vapor generation by airplanes flying at high altitudes where the atmosphere is colder. And they have been prominent atmospheric features since the beginning of the jet plane travel since World War II. We're going to call them sky trails because if you put the Charlie, Hotel, Echo, Mike in front of the trails and say it, then they pull or suppress or downgrade your videos where they can't go out to the public. So we're going to call them sky trails. And is the means by which chemicals are used at altitude, usually by aircraft, to modify, create precipitation, create temperature change, to cool or heat areas of the atmosphere to cause weather problems or weather precipitation or whatever you may want to call it. So let's just go ahead and jump in here and list the pros, what they call the pros of doing this airborne aerosol injections. Number one, it creates rain. Number two, it makes all the areas more hospitable. Number three, it can regulate the weather. Number four, it would allow for economic improvement. Number five, it can provide relief to those drought-stricken areas. And number six, it can reduce crop damage because of precipitation. Now let's look at the cons produced by the same people that wrote the pros to it. Let's look at the cons. It uses harmful chemicals. It is really not proven to be effective. It may affect the weather in a negative way. It can pose a negative risk for any living organism. It requires huge amounts of investments, and it can lead to flooding and undesirable weather problems. So, let's step over here right quick to the huge amount of investments. Where's all this money coming from? Now, I did find on the internet where you can go out there and you can literally search for a company that will do this stuff for you. Now, the government's been denying for years that it took place. However, all the way back in 1972, the Senate and the House passed a bill, number 908, that said that anybody that did any kind of this airborne aerosol injection, that's what we're going to call it, because if you say the word too many times of what you're talking about, they're going to suppress or pull down the video. So we're going to refer to this as airborne aerosol injections for the sky trails. All the way back then, you had to report to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration 10 days in advance that you were going to do anything with this. And there's been patents put on this since 1946. So the fact that they've been denying all this for years and years and years has just been a lie by all these agencies and things. So here's how this thing comes about. Once the silver iodine and other chemicals are released into the atmosphere, there is no controlling of what type of weather would form. It is likely there will be too much rain, which can cause problems of flooding. This will be very difficult for regions experiencing chronic water shortage, as they probably have no system in place to deal with the damage to be caused by the flooding. Hail is another risk that can cause a great deal of damage to property in urban areas in a short period of time. And I can attest to this. I was in South Dakota several years ago in a minivan, and we got into a hailstorm and could not get under a bridge or any trees or anything. And it did over $4,000 worth of damage just to the top and the hood of a minivan that we had rented. And we had a big time trying to get the insurance to pay for it. And it was on it was through the church and everything, and we had, I think it was 3 vans. It was just basically destroyed from these large hail balls, and they were big as baseballs, folks. They were huge. So now it makes me think that this thing was probably set up through the airborne aerosol injection to promote the sky trails to create all this stuff, even back then. The hail can also flatten the crops, causing probable food shortages and higher prices. Some people even fear that rather than solving the water shortage problems, that the sky trails would just make them worse. So let's talk about the big denial and the secrecy right quick. The claim is that the NOAA modifies the weather. Well, the fact is the NOAA does not modify the weather, nor does it fund, participate in, or oversee the sky trails or any other weather modification activities. See, there's the first lie. They're involved in it. You have to notify them, and they have to record it 10 days prior to it happening. So they lie when they say they ain't participating in it. This is just a recent article here, folks. The NOAA's objective is to better understand and predict Earth's systems. Well, you can do that if you're modifying it all the time and trying to create precipitation for snow or whatever it may be. And, it's easy to make a weather forecast now just 2 days ago, they were spraying in the distance here close by the house. Well, guess what it's doing today? Raining. And they wasn't calling for this last week. It's just been since 48 hours this took place. We are deepening our understanding and deploying new resources to improve forecasting. Well, the resources is the heavy investment in the spraying, folks. So you don't have to forecast it, you're creating it. So this is the big denial and the secrecy. And it gives communities earlier and more accurate warnings. Well, I guess so. If you're going to disturb the atmosphere and create a big perfect storm, you can come up and say, well, we're going to have severe weather. We're going to have squall line thunderstorms coming through. When you're creating them, you can do that. So the NOAA is required by law to track weather modification activities by others, including the sky trails, but has no authority to regulate those activities. And here's the act. It was called the Weather Modification Reporting Act of 1972, 15 Code of Federal Regulations 908, which requires anyone who intends to engage in weather modification within the U.S., including the sky trails, to provide a report to the administrator of NOAA at least 10 days prior to undertaking the activities. So what did the Government Accounting Office find out? Cloud seeding is a decades-old approach to modifying weather that uses a range of supporting technologies for research and operations, according to NOAA. The most common use of sky trails are to increase precipitation or suppress hail, usually by adding tiny particles of silver iodide, and 9 states are currently using it, while 10 have banned or have considered banning sky trails or weather modification in general. Federal cloud seeding involvement and support is minimal. So they're all into it, folks. Now, the sky trails has been one of the most controversial topics of the internet. Most people don't know that the sky trails are harming them at all. It has been a theory that many people that those sky trails are trying to kill people to lessen the population of the world. The lesser people, the more elite families can control us, is shocking, but not anymore. They're calling them artificial clouds, and they're sprayed by tanker jets, and they've been reported with ever-increasing frequency for the last 15 years. But what are they spraying? There's been no answers from authorities, just silence or complete lies. Why the secrecy? Why? Because there is strong evidence that the main substance they are spraying is a coal fly ash, a toxic nightmare that can be inhaled or entered through the skin and eyes. Our body's moisture is all that is required to release a host of toxins in chemically mobile forms, including aluminum, which is implicated in neurological diseases, and these people are poisoning humanity. The university sciences should be telling the truth. Instead, they deceive the public by geoengineering as if it's a short future possibility. The members of the National Science Academy should tell the truth about what has been happening in the air above us and warn the people of the dangers and the risk to health, and admit that knowledgeable science have too little understanding of the complex behavior of Earth to even consider this engineering, the airborne aerosol injections. And the politicians, they're supposed to serve the interest of the people who elected them, so they need to put a stop to this. The cloud seeding, the sky trails is happening everywhere, and it could be causing serious health problems in ways you folks aren't aware of. Now, a formerly classified operation is now a well-known tactic. The majority of commercial airliners have cloud seeding contracts with the government. Imagine that. And cloud seeding has been blamed for natural disasters like floods, tsunamis, droughts, earthquakes, tornadoes, plagues, famines, and even responsible for the changes in the atmosphere that are causing sunsets to appear differently. Well, let's go over some chemicals that are used in the artificial rain, airborne aerosol injection, and talk a little bit about this. Silver iodide. This is the main compound for the artificial rain. And with the chemical formula, it is a highly photosensitive and a reaction of iodide solutions with silver ions. It's yellowish in color and a solid form, and it can precipitate quickly. It acts as a trigger for the seeded cloud to precipitate. The chemical blends with the cloud and induce the freezing cloud to release in it the form of rain. With such function, the silver iodide is a chemical used in this process. And the silver iodide can be present in food and water sources due to the environmental contamination. So what is the symptoms of getting this stuff if you inhale it? This is how it's normally gotten into the body. Irritation of the eyes, the skin, and the mucous membranes. Gastrointestinal irritation, vomiting, diarrhea, coughing, and difficulty breathing. It causes kidney damage, brain damage, death, rash or hives, and tremors. So folks, if you live out in some of these states where they're spraying heavy and you get this cough and you just can't get rid of it, you can't get rid of it, you can't get rid of it, like me, I'm beginning to wonder if it's these particles that are continually coming in that's got this silver iodide in it and is causing all this coughing and mess. Now, the next one is potassium iodide. This is also another chemical they're using. And it causes gastrointestinal stomach upset, rashes, inflammation of the salivary glands, allergic reactions. And get this, folks, development of hypothyroidism in infants less than a month old. And that's the ones who receive more than what they should of this chemical, breathing it in naturally. Another chemical is carbon dioxide. This is the form of dry ice. And it's used in the making of the artificial rain. It's a colorless gas with a chemical compound. And when it is in the form of ice, it will help to weigh down the clouds and press the trapped water to fall down to the surface of the earth. And it makes me wonder when they use this and they combine it with liquid propane, which makes the air temperature drop, this could be what's causing these gigantic hail balls to form and then fall, because the propane is getting it cold because they use liquid propane in this mixture. And then this carbon dioxide forms all this ice. And if it stays up high enough at altitude and cold enough, it's just going to keep drawing itself together with all these other chemicals and making these gigantic hail balls. That may be what the problem is out in the Midwest, because they do a lot of this seeding out there. Another chemical they're using is calcium carbide. Now, a lot of these chemicals, I couldn't get any information on how they could affect people from cloud seeding through inhalation or exposure or however. There wasn't no information. If it was, you can't see it. They also use aluminum nitrate. They also use sodium chloride. They also use urea, which is also found in diesel exhaust fluid. But I did find another one that they was using called calcium chloride, and it can lead to burns in the mouth and throat, excessive thirst, vomiting, stomach pain, low blood pressure, and possible severe health effects. And it is used in a warm climate, warm cloud seeding, particularly over water and in humid regions of the world where moisture is abundant, maybe something like in the Amazon, somewhere there's a lot of humidity and things. But all this together, folks, means there's more opportunities to create precipitation and snow, and it brings the molecules together to form ice making and an opportunity for these great big large ice hail balls. So let's go into some things. All this stuff is dumping on the ground. This silver iodide and all these chemicals is contaminating the water and the soil, and it's hurting people's health, yet they continue to do it. Who is backing this stuff? Let's just go ahead and put it out there. It's a Bravo, Indigo, Lima, Lima. Okay? Bravo, Indigo, Lima, Lima. And Golf, Alpha, Tango, Echo, Sierra. That's Golf, Alpha, Tango, Echo, Sierra. Backs the climate scientists lobbying for large-scale airborne aerosol injections. And there's also other wealthy individuals who's funded a series of reports on this and is lobbying for this to take place. Now, these climate scientists are financially supported by these billionaires, include who we just said, and others, many others, and are lobbying governments and international bodies to back the experiments into manipulating the climate with geoengineering, and is opposed by many environmentalists. But where are they at? Where's the environmentalists at? You know, they put all this garbage on your cars, all this emissions control stuff for carbon monoxide because it supposedly heats up the atmosphere. But they're using all these chemicals in the air that heats it up and cools it down and causes all these storms, and it's deadly to people, deadly to the plants and animals and aquatic life and living organisms everywhere. Not just in certain parts. It's all over the world. I found more information that I can get out of countries like India and things than I could off of servers and stuff in the United States. A lot of this stuff was hidden or suppressed and you couldn't find it, but you could go to another country and just easily pull it right out, and it had all this information on it. And these were coming from doctors that were trained and did residency here in the United States. So the concern now is growing that the small but influential group of scientists and their billionaire backers may have a disproportionate effect on major decisions about airborne aerosol injections research and the policy. And we will need to protect ourselves from vested interest and be sure that the choices are not influenced by parties who might make significant amounts of money off of this. So that's something we've got to do. The stakes are very high, they say. And the scientists are not the best people to deal with the social, ethical, or political issues of this. The idea that the self-selected group should have that much influence is bizarre. And there are clear conflicts of interest between the people involved and the researchers and all that's going on. And the whole thing comes down to a nutshell is we cannot put the fox in charge of the hen house. And there's more than one fox. There's several billionaires that are involved in this where there's a lot of money at stake that's wanting to write the rules and the regulations of it and benefit from it. And we can't put the foxes in charge of the chicken coop, okay? So where is the environmentalist? We just asked that. Isn't the purpose of the carbon monoxide and all that stuff on your cars, it runs the cost of your cars up 8, 10, 15,000 per vehicle, it's just so it don't warm the earth. But all these chemical concentrations that they're spraying, the carbon dioxide, sulfur, and using solar radiation reflection into the air to create warming and cooling to modify the weather. In other words, to make CC look real through manipulation. If you can cool the air by spraying high concentrations of sulfur to bring down temperatures, then you can create rapid warming by spraying high concentrations of carbon dioxide close by in a good geographic location, which in turn can cause violent thunderstorms. And this is a basic known fact on how thunderstorms form, and any meteorologist or anyone trained in meteorology or a trained pilot who has studied weather knows that updrafts and downdrafts is what the beginning and building stages of thunderstorms and things like that are. Who stands to profit off of this, folks? Well, let me tell you, there's a company out there called Monsanto, and they have developed an aluminum resistant seed. And that's just what all this silver iodide is. It's all aluminum poured down. It's going to cause the pH balances in the dirt and stuff to be off real bad. And they've developed a resistant seed. Ain't that convenient? Right here at the right time, they've got an aluminum resistant seed that they've already made. And it's in response to the aluminum sky trail contamination of the planet. Well, let's talk about the manipulating the weather to create the CC, stratospheric aerosol injection. And using the sulfur in the stratosphere can be very effective at offsetting the heating effects of carbon dioxide, which reflects more sunlight. This can cool areas of the earth being sprayed with this chemical. So, if they want to create and say that the temperatures are just outrageous, well, they can just coat these areas with these chemicals and cause the temperatures to go up, or they can cool them down. And that may have something to do with all this snow and stuff that come up through the Gulf Coast, had all them blizzards and all that snow and stuff. I think it was manipulated, folks. Using and manipulating the weather constantly is what they are doing to try to get people on board with the CC by actually creating the anomaly for people to believe, so they will back the Green New Scam and all the EPA garbage associated with the rules and regulations, giving an unstoppable power to the environmentalist Echo Papa Alpha, who love leveling fines and enjoy power over the general public. Why is the Echo Papa Alpha completely quiet on this SkyTrails? It's because it furthers the cause of the activists, the Echo Papa Alpha Agency, the Echo Papa Alpha Agency funding, the green energy scam, and they receive grants to all these activist organizations and funding for outrageous scientific studies. In other words, the stuff that they're finding, all this bizarre, crazy spending and throwing money away, it's all about the money, folks. It's just all about the money. One company in particular on the internet is advertising, they call Make Sunset, is a company run by founders, and these two gentlemen, I ain't going to call their name, that sells what they call a cooling credit, where people can pay them to send sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere to cool it. So we can now add the term cooling credit to the vocabulary of the CC activists. This sounds just like the garbage of carbon taxes, carbon credits, and eliminating the carbon footprint. This is a futuristic Sasquatch in the making. So folks, I told you we was going to have some stuff. Now all this SkyTrail stuff is destroying the gardens and the soil and everything out there. Is causing people to be sick. It's causing a lot of stuff. And people need to get their head out of the sand. If they don't want to believe it, all you got to do is go on the internet. You can find enough on the internet, folks, on your own search on Google to know that it's going on. But if you go to some independent search engines like DuckDuckGo and then try to go utilizing that through a foreign country, you're going to find a whole lot of information on how all this stuff is affecting the production of crops, the reliability of a lot of geoengineered seeds and things like that. And it's going to get to the point, folks, with them doing all this Roundup Ready seedings and all this aluminum contaminated stuff, that an heirloom seed is not going to even work anymore. So folks, I hope this has been informative to you, and I appreciate you joining me here on Deep River Farm, and I hope everybody has a blessed day.